Hi, for those just joining, we do have a little intro poll. If everybody could fill it out, please.
Hey, Allison. Hey, Rebecca.
Hello.
Hey, sorry I'm late. My computer did a forced reboot at 11:29. So perfect timing for that, right? Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you. Hey, Brett.
Hey, Cameron. How's it going? Looks like there's a poll in progress. Sorry, I'm just now joining. Allison, we're just giving people more minutes to finish the poll, let people trickle in.
Yeah, it's actually Becca, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, Becca.
hi. Yeah, people are coming in. I think I'm having a mic issue.
Cool. So if you just join, there's an opening poll just asking a little bit about your background. So we'll give folks maybe one more minute to finish that, and we'll get kicked off here.
Do you all hear that beeping when people enter, or is that just on my end?
I hear it.
Do you guys know how to turn that off when people come and go?
I might be able to.
Becca, are you looking into that?
Yeah.
I've tried to turn it off before in this browser settings, and for some reason it doesn't take all the time.
Okay.
Good luck.
So Becca, I just got a second poll. I think this one is for the end, but I could be wrong. It's asking if we would refer someone, a colleague. So for the folks, there we go. For the folks on the call, this is our first time doing this. TechLife Columbus has been around for over a decade. With COVID, the group of organizers who run TechLife Columbus chose to try something different. And so we're experimenting with a few different things. And one of them is this TechLife Live series. And so it's a series that we're running every month. It's part of a broader TechLife Live number of groups on everything from like engineering to design to JavaScript user groups, you kind of name it. And so if you subscribe to this and you join today, you should be able to join and have access to a bunch of different really interesting meetups that are happening throughout the month. And the idea is there will be a new topic and a new presenter every month within each of these different kind of domain areas or functions. So why don't we get this started? I think something we'll do in the next poll is probably update some of the list of technologists that we folks that we have joining here, because I'd imagine a lot of the people on the call, and you can see it's about 77% fall outside of engineering. And so probably a lot of product managers, product designers who are joining us today just because of our topic. So we'll get that updated next time around. I wanted to start by just, thanking Cameron for joining us. So Cameron, really appreciate you taking the time. Cameron and I have talked a few different times on different Zoom calls just to learn more about ChatStrike. Super interesting story, really excited for this discussion today. Cameron, before we dive into ChatStrike, you recently moved back to Columbus from, I believe, the Bay Area. I wondered if you could just provide a little bit of background on yourself and maybe a little bit about your journey and maybe what led you back to Columbus.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's great to be here and chatting with you, Brett, and thanks to everyone for.
So yeah, and I don't think.
Oh. Yeah, a little bit on my background. So I grew up in Columbus. So I grew up in Dublin, Ohio, and then went to college at Duke and studied engineering there. Worked for a few years in management consulting. And while
Exactly, it doesn't have like that level of detail.
Hey Becca, can you put people on mute? Are you able to do that? Looks like I can do that too. All right, sorry, Cameron.
Oh, no worries. So yeah, while there, I became very interested in technology, and that's what encouraged me to get my MBA. So I studied in business school at MIT, and really I was interested in learning as much as I could about technology and kind of what it takes to start a company. And while there, that's when I a lot of this is back in 2010, the best recommendation engines in the world at this time were for things like movies and songs and books, right, on Netflix and Amazon. And I was surprised because a lot of my classmates in business school were very confused about what they wanted to do at a school. And these are folks who, usually had a little more experience under their belt. But they were just, everyone was just as confused as an undergrad. And so this is really what inspired me to start Beansprock, which is, we wanted to take those same sort of optimization techniques that Netflix and Amazon were using and apply it to one of the most important decisions you make, what job to take. And so we worked on Beansprock for a while. My partner and I, was getting his PhD at MIT at the time, and solved the same problem in his lab. And so what we were doing, we were basically pulling in jobs from across the web and then using natural language processing to evaluate those postings for our users' preferences, and then only sending the best one that we found each day to our users in an email. And we were able to build a pretty good business around it. It became more of a lifestyle business. We brought on, some of our own clients as well and sprinkled their jobs in, and we made a match, and received a commission the same way a headhunter would. There were some problems with the business. I mean, ultimately it didn't become this big scalable tech company we envisioned when we started it. And, I'll spare you all the things we learned from that. But it was a great experience, and we moved out to the Bay Area to get that going. And after that, I joined another startup called Formation.ai. And so I was leading their product on their user interface and their AI experimentation platform. What Formation does, so Brett, do you have the Starbucks app or the United Airlines app? Okay.
Yeah, I've got Starbucks.
So if you go to the Starbucks app, it depends how often you go to Starbucks, but if you go somewhat frequently, you'll get these offers that are, buy this product, get a bunch of stars, get, this other breakfast sandwich, get even more stars, that sort of stuff. And they're all highly personalized. So those offers are powered by Formation.
Hmm.
So they basically are the engine behind these very individualized, machine learned loyalty program offers to enterprise customers, end customers. So I did that for a while, and when I first joined, so that was back in 2016, and that was my first exposure to Slack. I was that guy that was still, emailing everybody. And I remember the CEO, I emailed the CEO and he's like, Cam, just shoot me a Slack message, just Slack me this stuff. So I quickly realized, this is the way that modern workplaces are communicating. And I was blown away with it. I mean, the power of messaging, there's a reason personally we use, text, and it's the way that we communicate. It's the preferred, way to communicate personally. It makes perfect sense that this is the way that we've gone professionally as well. This beautiful blend of synchronous and asynchronous communication. But what surprised me, so when I was at Formation, we took the company. It was at the time 30 employees, and in my time there, we went up to 130. So there was a lot of growth, and to help with that growth, we hired internal recruiters. And what surprised me is they were in Slack all day long as well, and messaging with their teammates and their coworkers and their hiring managers. But when it came time to communicate with candidates, they're forced to kind of leave and use email and these same old channels. So that's what inspired me to start ChatStrike. And it we realized there's a big opportunity to kind of help recruiters stay in their home, so to speak, and how they communicate and kind of streamline that process for recruiters. How I ended up back here in Columbus is, basically, you remember when those fires were going on last summer, Brett? There was a bunch of fires out west. And
definitely.
Yeah, so I was living in San Francisco, and I couldn't leave my apartment. It was, I don't know if you guys saw pictures of this, but it was literally, if you walk outside, this is before people were wearing masks, but you could throw all the masks in the world and you still couldn't breathe. So I was looking for a way to get out of there. And so I decided to fly to Columbus and just quarantine in the basement and live with my folks for a little bit. And I thought it would be maybe a week, and the fires were still going on. So, I stayed in the basement here in Columbus, and decided, well, this might be going on for a while. I'd love to kind of meet some folks in the Columbus, tech ecosystem, and meet folks in the startup space. And so, I got connected to some folks. I reached out, I sent some cold emails to folks just to try to learn more about what was happening in Columbus. And, I had stayed close to some of what was going on. I knew about some of the big winners here with, obviously Cover My Meds and some of the up and comers, and with, Drive Capital coming to Columbus, I was aware about all of that. But after meeting with folks, I was really blown away with, the energy and the excitement and everything that was happening here in Columbus. And it was just infectious. And so, personally, I'd been wanting to get back to Columbus for a while, but after talking to folks, I realized professionally this was the right move for ChatStrike too.
That's a great story. Thanks for sharing all that. I worked in Bay Area for nearly 6 years and still have some friends who live there and went through some of those same experiences you had with the fires. Even had a friend whose home had burnt down in Sonoma. So
Wow.
it was crazy, sad for sure. Glad to hear you're in Columbus and you're sticking around and that you like it. Tell us a little bit more about ChatStrike. What's it geared towards? Who's the target audience? Where are you guys at from a product perspective?
Yeah, so it's evolved quite a bit, and and staying true to the theme of kind of today's meetup, there's been a lot of learning, right? That's happened. But one thing that hasn't changed is we started ChatStrike because we wanted to give candidates greater access to recruiters. So Originally it was, they have this direct end to chat with recruiters anytime throughout the interview process. But the problem that we've always wanted to solve is kind of the black hole problem that applicants experience whenever they apply for a job. And so what that is, this is an infamous problem that was really brought on when online job boards came about and became so frictionless to apply for jobs that you could just apply for as many as you want, and that lack of friction, it kind of created a really bad candidate experience, because now recruiters had so many more candidates they needed to review, and they would just kind of sit there for months and months and months. And it would sometimes be a bad signal, right? If it's just sitting there. But a lot of the times they're just slow and you don't know where you stand. And then 2 or 3 months later, you could get an email and be like, hey, we're excited to, interview you. And it's like, well, lots changed in the last 3 months. So that's the problem. That's kind of the big vision, the problem that we've always wanted to tackle, is to give candidates access to recruiters to kind of know where they stand and be able to connect with recruiters. And messaging has changed all that. So messaging, before, recruiters, the first touch point was always a 30-minute phone call, which is a lot of work for a recruiter. And it's a tall ask, especially when they're flooded with a lot of applications. And so what we've built is we've kind of reinvented the job fair, Brett, where we took kind of what was going on, these career fair platforms today, I was very uninspired by them. How they work is they've taken exactly what existed in the physical world, and then they put it behind video, and they said, okay, here's my virtual career fair, right? And that's basically it. That's the only, everything you'll notice, everything still works the exact same. And so without getting into too many details on the ChatStrike job fair, we took a fresh look at it and said, what should this be? And what we realized is anyone can host their own always on job fair. And so it doesn't have to be just your typical schools or trade associations that are hosting job fairs. It could be, you write a newsletter on, for example, product managers. And, you as a newsletter writer can host your own always on job fair, where your audience basically has access to recruiters who join that job fair. So that's really what we've always wanted to do is give folks access to recruiters. And that's what the ChatStrike job fair product does. It allows anyone to host their own job fair and just kind of set it and forget it. And then recruiters on the ChatStrike platform can find these different job fairs that exist and connect with candidates who sign up to chat with them.
One of the things that I really liked about your product when you and I were just, meeting for the first time and you were telling me about ChatStrike was I think you said something like, think about the recruiting experience as a funnel and, a funnel of different touch points. And we're really optimizing for one of the biggest pain points in that funnel. And that's what you talked about, that initial application experience of, clicking the apply on LinkedIn or submitting your resume, and really zooming in on that problem space and trying to fix that for recruiters and for applicants. And then you had a really strong understanding of, who your target audience was and what their pain points were. But, you said, hey, we still don't know exactly what we need to build here and what our finished product is going to look like. And we're still learning, what the right solution is. And so can you talk a little bit more about what approaches you've taken to figure out, the right thing to build and expand on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll give you a story of, when we first started ChatStrike, we thought that everyone would always want to chat with recruiters, for example. This was like to me, this was a no-brainer. If I'm looking for a job, like, of course I'm going to want to, chat with the recruiter of this job and get the ball rolling right away. And we did an experiment early on, Brett, where basically we included a link at the top of a job. We posted these jobs on Indeed. So I don't know if you all are familiar with Indeed. It's a job board aggregator where you can post jobs to Indeed. And so we posted this job, to Indeed, and people could apply the normal way. But also we included a link, and we tried to make it very noticeable at the top of the page. We included a link, which is like, want to chat with the lead recruiter of this, like, sign up to chat with them here. And we were actually pretty surprised because the number of people who ended up applying for the job, like, still dwarfed the number of people who signed up to chat with the recruiter. And, a lot of people signed up to chat with the recruiter, but so many more people, chose to just apply instead. And so we sent out a survey to the people who applied, and we were like, hey, did you see, you could have just chatted with the recruiter, like, and skipped this whole step and just gone right in. Did you see that? And a lot of people said, no, I didn't see it. And maybe they did, you never really know with surveys, because maybe they were didn't want to look, a certain way, who knows. But some people were like, I would kind of rather just know if I'm a fit first before I chat. And so that was a really interesting insight that we learned, is that, we've always known recruiters. So if you take the typical career fair today, we've always known that recruiters, a lot of them hate career fairs because they just don't want to chat with so many unqualified candidates, right? And we've always known that was a big pain point for recruiters. And so they want to be able to review those candidates in advance and chat with only the ones that are a possible fit.
Mm-hmm.
But this kind of blew me away, because it was like, candidates, they don't want to chat with you either unless they're a possible fit, right? And so that's the first thing. And it reminded me, one of my friends, we were talking about this feature, this LinkedIn feature. It's the most loved feature on LinkedIn. And it's, if you go to a job posting on LinkedIn, they'll tell you, what percent you are among applicants who apply, basically how you stack up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Against other, if you're in the top 20% or 10% of people who apply. And people love that. And even though it's kind of an algorithm that's just looking at some data and trying to guess, whether you should apply or if you're a fit or not, people still love that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we took that same sort of learning, and now when candidates sign up to chat, they're actually signing up to see if they're a fit right away, right? So they'll sign up to chat, and a recruiter, the candidate doesn't even need to show up. Like, if a recruiter will review the candidate ahead of the chat window, and if they're not a fit, they'll decline the candidate and provide. The other thing we wanted to really change, that we're passionate about, Brett, is it's not just solving the black hole problem of, yes or no, you're rejected or you're accepted kind of right out of the gate. That alone is super valuable. But we also, if you get declined, we wanted to allow you to get feedback on why you were declined. So we actually require recruiters to add, some personalized feedback as to why the chat was declined, as well. So that's how kind of we learned and evolved to set it up for, first, let's review candidates, when they sign up for these chats. And then for candidates, it's a win-win as well, because you get your answer right away, and you yourself don't need to waste time, chatting with someone that, you might never be a fit for.
That's great. So for that first experiment that you ran, where you gave them the option to chat or not, like how long did it take you to spin that up? Like, what did that look like? And what was the process that you went through to kind of figure out the scope of it?
Yeah, good question. Well, for the record, that was far from our first experiment. This was, farther along on the ChatStrike evolution, kind of how the product evolved. But for that, we actually already had a lot of the core kind of infrastructure, let's call it, in place. So, by then we had built the ability for recruiters to screen applicants over messaging. So a lot of times for these high volume roles, you might get 150 applicants a week, and maybe 30 of them are potentially qualified. So ChatStrike, the same kind of messaging technology that allows for these job fairs, we first built for screening. And so recruiter can screen 30 candidates in 3 hours over messaging using things like pre-chat questions and being able to message with potentially multiple candidates at once as well. So that was a kind of big efficiency gain, and we have paying customers for that product as well. And so we already had kind of that in place. This was really just the same way that you'd have candidates sign up for one of these chat windows to talk to a recruiter during a screening event. They would sign up to chat with a recruiter even though they hadn't applied yet. So that this example is maybe not the best one for how much. For us, it was a no-brainer experiment. It was an easy experiment to run. We didn't need to build much, and we learned a hell of a lot from it. It blew me away. You often, I'm sure Brett from all the product work you've done, but every time we roll something out, I'm surprised by at least one or two things, right? That just I never could have foreseen, and you learn from it. And this was one of those cases where it was really interesting to see that candidates want to know if they're a fit first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's really impressive about what you've done. I think Google says something like they have to try 8 different things before they get it right. And the reality is we're wrong a lot, right? And we have a ton of assumptions that are baked into our ideas. And you guys have figured out ways to test those assumptions or test into those ideas and learn from them and then respond really quickly, both with your product, but also with your business model a little bit. Like, I don't think you initially, if I understand correctly, we're looking at like career fairs and partnering with podcasts and different, blogs and things like that. Can you talk a little bit more about how you kind of pivoted some of your business model to go in that direction?
Yeah. So the business model, if you're in, SaaS, the typical business model is you get paid per seat, right? And it's a good model. I mean, subscription you got recurring revenue. It's usually pretty stable. It's usually very predictable. The street values it with a pretty high multiple. And if the street does that, then, it all works backwards to venture capital as well. So that's your standard kind of business model. And, what we realized is, we had a lot of use cases for the product that we've built, whether it's screening applicants, prospecting on LinkedIn, or these job fairs. And what we realized is we wanted it to be open to everybody. So as you mentioned, we're building a platform. We want to get as many recruiters onto the ChatStrike job fair platform as possible. And so because of that, because our goal is not to maximize revenue. Our goal is to get as many job fairs and as many recruiters and as many, candidates onto the job fair platform as possible. So we realized the best pricing model for that is actually a usage-based pricing model. So I don't know if are you familiar with like Twilio or Snowflake?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So these guys, they really kind of pioneered, I would say, I mean, there's been usage-based models in the past, but I point to these two because they created a very strong kind of case study of how effective this pricing model can be. And so Twilio, they charge you based on, how many messages you send, or Snowflake, they charge you based on, how much data that you use or that you store and things like that. And so the beauty of the usage-based models is it's actually really easy to get onboarded and get started. You only pay for what you use. And I think that's a model that customers are just very comfortable. And it just seems fair, right?
Yeah.
And so what we realized is, normally when you kind of post your, or attend a job fair or post your job to a job board, you pay for that kind of just to be there, right? You pay an upfront fee to be there. What we realized is we could go deeper in the funnel, and recruiters, like, forget about paying to be there. You can join there for free, right? It's free to join. You can be there. You can show up. Candidates can apply. Next level down is, okay, you get candidates to actually sign up to chat with you. That's all free too. You don't pay for that. The next level down is only if you decide to accept those chats do you pay. So it's a usage-based model, and it provides much more kind of certainty for the payer, in this case for recruiters. So I think you're seeing a lot of startups today that are going more towards these usage-based models if you can. I mean, in our case, we're all about chats, right? So if the chat happens, we can get paid for it. That's what we do. We're not doing a whole bunch of other things besides chats today, right? So for us, it became, we learned that this would be the best model. And I think you're seeing a lot of startups, if they can go this route, they're going this route in the future. I'm pretty bullish on these usage-based pricing models.
Cool. Thanks for that. I've got one or two more questions, and then we'll open it up to everyone else. One of the things that I really liked when we first met is you said something like, "Hey, we know this problem space. We know the pain points that exist. We have a good understanding of the value prop. We don't know the solution, right? And we need to learn what that solution's, what that solution needs to be, right? Learning needs to be part of our strategy. It needs to be part of how we work and how we operate. But you said something like it needs to also be part of our culture." And I thought that was really interesting. Can you expand a little bit on, how you've tried to make learning part of your culture?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. So culture's a tricky one because, I think it starts with the founders, and it's very hard to change once you have a certain culture in place. For us, we always knew kind of going in. So the team, my founding team, we're the same team that worked together at formation before ChatStrike.
Okay.
And we've always shared kind of this vision and the core problem we're trying to solve. And for us, we were kind of brainstorming ways that we can get there. And so for us, it's always, I think the whole team, and I think also as a product manager, it's your job to not be, the goal is of course to have a successful product with every rollout, right? And you want to show that it moved like the KPI needle in a big way, hopefully a transformational way, but at a minimum, maybe an incremental way, right? However, if you kind of take a step back and be like, the definition of success is not that we rolled out a product that, just immediately had product market fit and all this, right? If you make it more about, we understand this is going to be an iterative process, right? Especially when you start a company. I mean, if you're kind of building smaller features on top of a bigger product that's already well established, I think it's a little different situation. But if it's a brand new product, then I think it's your job as a PM to try to manage expectations, not just within your team, but also, leadership and everyone else, all your other stakeholders around, look, we're trying to learn, and everything that we roll out, we're going to learn something new. It's almost like what's the Thomas Edison quote? He's like, I haven't failed. I just have like 10,000 things that I've discovered that don't work, or ways that don't work. So,
right.
So that really is, I think that's the exact right attitude. And I think everyone on the team, I think you as a PM need to instill that attitude, because when you launch products, you learn a ton. You can learn a ton before you launch, right? But you never really know until you ship.
Yeah.
And then you're always surprised, like we were saying before, right? You're always surprised. And so I've been fortunate that my team, we've all kind of recognized this, because we're 2 years in. We started this 2 years ago. So other founders, I worked on Beansprout before for 6 years. So I realized the importance of kind of iterating and learning, and so we're fortunate that the team recognizes that, the goal is obviously to everything you launch to be a huge success, but it's never a failure if you're learning a ton learning a ton from the launch, and it gets you closer to the vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked a little bit about, like, it's risky or not to be learning, because, and not to be scared to take new risks, or to pilot something, or run an experiment, because you end up building the wrong thing so often. And so, I think a lot of people think it can be risky to fail, and in a lot of cases, it's riskier not to fail, because you're not taking those small, those failures are smaller, right? Like that test you ran.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah. The small, the smaller things you can deploy, the better. Rather than, you don't want to be, in a vacuum for 6 months building something and then roll it out. Ideally you're rolling something out every couple weeks, and you're getting feedback on it. But some features, look, they do take a month or two, right?
Yeah.
The big stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, it's again, like as a PM, I think it's on you to kind of instill that culture with the team of what is the definition of success here. And it's what you learn. And so, with every feature that we roll out, we have a weekly meeting, and we talk about what we learn. I'm not, and we love that, because we're all getting smarter. We're all getting more knowledgeable about the space. We're all learning about, what the customer wants, what they don't want. And these learnings, they're transferable for the rest of our lives. So, whatever we do. So, we see this as it's like a little bit of a school.
Yeah, I like that. We work with a lot of different product teams, and one of the things that we try and really instill, like, as teams are trying to become more empowered or autonomous, and are oriented around metrics, is we do this. It's very tactical, but in their show and tells, which a lot of teams do, like after they release something or after they build something, they'll say, hey, or they want to demo something that they're about to release. We, in a lot of teams, will organize like those show and tells around their sprints. And so they might have a show and tell every sprint week or two, and they talk about what they've built. We really try to emphasize, we'll talk about what you've learned as well. Like similar to what you said, don't just show what you've built, show what you've learned. That stuff just as powerful, right? And how those learnings are going to inform what you're doing next.
We had so when I was at Formation, we would have all hands meetings, and usually there'd be, this is, the company, it might be 100 people or so, but you would, they'd rotate and have different, PMs give a demo on the product. And it was amazing. What everyone found most fascinating and kind of what led to the most Q&A was always around kind of, what we learned. And people, it's just, I think a lot of smart people are curious about that and are constantly trying to learn. And that almost excites them more than, what we actually built.
It definitely does. I can definitely attest to that. Like we have clients who are very small startups and clients who are very, very large corporations. And particularly the large corporations, like prior to working with us, a lot of their communications to executive teams are, here's what we've built, here's what we've done. We had all these meetings, or we talked to all these users, or we built all this great stuff. And that's historically been their update or their communication that they're having with these executives. And often when we first start joining these meetings, they're like, it's like crickets, like an hour long of someone communicating something. As soon as we start to layer in, here's what we learned, the discussion blows up. Everyone gets super excited. There's tons of engagement, and it really just changes the conversation completely. Definitely been my experience.
It's a great way to manage up too, right? It doesn't matter what your role is, whether you're PM, engineer, marketing, sales. If you can just share things that you're learning with your boss, I think it's going to do wonders for your career. If you make a habit of just sharing your learnings, because then they're like, this guy's getting, it's almost, they see their investment return. Like this guy's, becoming more and more valuable, right? With all the knowledge and learnings that he's gained. So, it's always a smart move for any.
We work with a lot of companies who are doing product management for the first time, or they're trying to upskill their product managers. And so all of a sudden, if you have product management or someone focused really deep on something, they're able to surface all of that like deep understanding of the problem or the technology in a way that the company's never seen before. And so it just becomes even more powerful because you've got someone, talking about deep learnings and what the team is working on at a whole nother level.
It's funny. It's also, I've noticed this with my engineering team as well. When I come back and share, what I've learned from, say, onboarding a new customer or, customer feedback or anything, that's when they're the most engaged too. So your own engineering team, and they need that. And I learned that at Formation as well. When you're a product manager, you're the front person with the customer, right? So that needs to, oftentimes I think PMs don't do a good job of sharing what's going on in the market, what customers are saying, and engineers need, that's like their fuel, right? They're going to get burnt out if they're just like building features, building, requirements from a ticket. If they're not getting, the actual fuel from you of why am I building this? Who said that? If you can, it's better if you can put an exact name, right? And a customer to a specific request. I feel like that's fuel for engineers, and that's really, really important for their motivation as well.
It's a great way to retain your top talent or to lose your top talent if you're not doing that, because you said like engineers are fueled off of that. They're motivated off of like solving business problems. They aren't motivated by just, coding all day based off of spec doc or something like that. We work with a lot of companies that bring us in because of that reason. Hey, our developers are quitting because they're getting thrown features over the wall to go and build. And often, the developers are thinking about it 40 hours a week. And so they've got great ideas that are being under leveraged or underutilized, and like either bringing them into the conversation or sharing that context with them is huge. And also if you're writing acceptance criteria, you don't have to write as detailed ACs. So like you save time, which every product manager hates. So a lot of pluses on that one. So last question is, product manage. This is a hard one. I still struggle with this, but product management looks different at different companies. From your perspective, what does it mean to be a product manager?
Yeah, great question. Yeah. Well, all right. So so you've heard the term like the CEO of the product, right?
Right.
I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't love it. I get it because you need to have a vision, and I don't love it because you don't have hiring and firing. Generally have like hiring and firing, and some of the P&L stuff is out of your control. So I think I understand like why people might refer to the product manager as the CEO of the product. I think there's some overlap there, but I don't think it totally stands up.
Yeah, it's actually pretty controversial, right? That would be a fun. We should do that as a poll and see what the audience thinks. Like, do you think this is a good way to describe the role of PM? I personally like it. I saw an argument. I get, like you said, like I get why you might be hesitant to use it, right? Because you don't have any authority. You're not, you're working with a cross-functional team, but you don't manage them. And I guess the other problem with it, or the other thing that people have a problem with it, is they don't want it to go to the PM's head and feel like you're not this, CEO, and they're worried that. I'm not as concerned about that. Like if by saying you're the CEO of the product causes you to, I think you're probably just arrogant and a bad PM anyway. So I don't think, using that description is, should affect anything. But I was actually reading an article a couple weeks ago, and someone said they're not, you shouldn't use the term CEO of the product because it glamorizes product management, and product management is not as, very glamorous when you actually know what's going on.
Yeah.
And, when I was reading that, I was like, I think it's way more. So if you're the CEO of a big company, yeah, it's not as glamorous. But if you're the CEO of a startup, there's nothing less glamorous. The work that I have to do, like legal crap, the finance crap, there's so much stuff that you don't want to deal with as CEO. I was like, I'd give anything to be a dedicated product manager right now. Like that would be amazing. What do you mean, like glamour of CEO? So I disagree with that one. I like it because I think it does encapsulate you are cross-functional. You're talking to literally everyone across the company. You're talking to customers. I think it's great. I think it's a good description. Ultimately, to me, what a product manager is it's figuring out what to build and when to build it. That's kind of it. But to be able to do that, you need to, it's hard. It's a lot harder than it sounds. And you need to have a lot of the kind of responsibilities that a CEO would in terms of strategy, business model, KPIs, and things like legal and finance and stuff. Right. So I like it.
Maybe it's startup CEO of the product.
Yeah. And also I'll add one thing. Like you said, it depends on the company. Like I think for me, product manager is just what to build and when to build it. But at Formation, product managers, because it was a startup, they were doing even more than that. So they had to do, actually more kind of project management work as well.
Yeah.
And product owner type work too.
Yeah.
So all of that, sometimes gets folded into the product manager term. And I like all the work personally. I think it's all great. But like you said, it's interesting because every single company is different in terms of what the real responsibility is going to be.
Yeah. And I guess maybe I'll retract that a little bit, like my position on that, because I like what you said, like you don't have direct authority, but a good product manager might not need direct authority to influence the people that he needs to influence, to do whatever they need to do, or do whatever the product needs. So I'll take that back. All right, we've got 8 minutes here. What wanted to open it up to the group. What if you've got a question, just go ahead and come off of mute and ask it.
Hey, Cameron, this is Nikhil. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Nikhil.
Hey, thanks for taking the question. As you go through your iterations, you build out features quickly, you're engaging with your customer community. How have you found, or what have you done to communicate and educate your customers on the value of your product? At what point do they say, oh, this is hugely valuable. Yes, I'm willing to pay whatever you're asking me because there is great value in it for me to use it. Like, what does that journey look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's kind of two approaches you can take, right? And Nikhil, can you maybe share a little bit of your background as well? Are you currently a product manager or working on your own thing, or?
Yeah, so I am a CTO of a VC-backed company here that was founded here in Columbus. Now it's kind of spread out because of pandemic. It's called Strong Suit. And then I have something that I'm building on the side for my wife. She's an author, and so I'm building an AI engine for her. And we have these conversations about like, all right, this is an awesome product. And she's like, well, all that stuff is great, but you want to charge me so much money. At what point does it even add value to my life? I understand that it's AI and machine learning and fancy stuff for you, but what does that mean to me? I'm the author. You don't want to build the services for me. And so, I get to see this play out even in my sort of my day job or day and a half job. And then things that I build for my wife, it's that conversation around great tech, great opportunity in future. Probably everything will make a lot of sense, but you're growing and you are still defining who you are and who you want to be as you grow. How do you convey the value of your problem?
Yeah, I think there's kind of some different questions there. It sounds like there's kind of, how do you communicate whether the value of your product to a potential customer? Then there's, how do you know if you're actually solving that problem for them? And for the second one, it's a little easier. The second one is or at least the approach we took is we'll build a product based on what a customer tells us they might need, or based on something innovative that we think the customer will want based on what we know about the market, and we'll roll it out, and it'll be free, and we'll just look at usage. And if the usage isn't high, we know that we don't even need to go any farther. We know that the product, it's not doing its job, and we would never be able to charge for it. If the usage is high, then we kind of graduate to the next level of validation, which is, okay, we built something that's clearly solving a problem here because it's being used. How much is that worth, right? You never, because that's another thing. You never know if the product's going to even be used, right, until you roll it out. But the next kind of graduating, the next level is, how much are you going to be able to charge for it if it is used? And in some cases, it's still zero, right? In some cases, it's used, but no one would pay a dime for it. And so that's when you need to have kind of the discussions with customers of, and it's a combination of, getting customer feedback based on what they think it's worth, but also you being able to try to quantify it for them. How much time are they saving with this product? What are they getting from this product? If it's not time saved, are they getting money from it in some way? There's other ways to get value, but you need to quantify that so you have a sense of how much value the product is bringing to them given their usage. Yeah. And then you meet somewhere in the middle on that price.
Yeah, that's a good way to explain the process of providing it and then gauging the true value, not sort of as advertised, but as experienced once you start using it. Because that to me also seems like a journey. First experience is not always the last experience. So maybe they fall in love with it the more they use it. But the sticker price may be a bit of a challenge initially.
Yeah, I especially when it's a new product, I would get as many users, try to get as many users possible for free, and then observe the usage first.
Cool, thank you.
Nikhil, something else to consider is just really making sure you have a really good understanding of the problem before you are trying to apply technology to a problem. Like make sure that you're starting with the problem first.
Yep. Yes.
Great question though.
Have you had any requests for custom work, custom development, anything like that yet?
Yeah. So that's a good question. Neil, is that something that you experience in what you do?
Yeah, so definitely in the past, trying to balance, the learning and things like that, and kind of that general product view for your entire customer, right? And balancing that with, requests, hey, larger clients, sometimes, we'd like to kind of customize it in this way. And then obviously you want to try to kind of parlay that into something that works for everybody, but
Right.
Custom is custom sometimes.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, that's a great question, and it's so situational. It depends on how important that customer is to your business, how strapped your resources are, what that customer expects from you. At Formation, we had, Starbucks, for example. These are enterprise customers playing multi-million-dollar contracts. So they expect some level of customization, even if we're not using it for the rest of the platform. And so for that, it's just making sure what do you need to do? I don't want to say what's the minimal you need to do to keep them happy, but like, what do you need to do to make sure that they're still a happy customer? And like you said, as a PM, it's figuring out, obviously you do the stuff first that you also know that you want to do that'll be valuable for the rest of the platform. Right. And so, that's where it's kind of a little bit of a conversation with the customer and the product manager. The product manager needs to, the product manager has this knowledge of, okay, they want these 10 features. 4 of these we know we want to build for the platform anyway. So let's try to tell them, okay, we'll build these 4 for you. Right. And then be like,
it almost.
Try to package it and just so they'll be like, oh, okay, that's cool. At least I'm getting some of these, right? And then sometimes they'll push back and be like, well, this is the one we really want the most.
Yeah.
And if that happens, sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and do it to keep them happy. Right. And that's when you need to decide, do you have the resources to do it, or the hard part of being a PM is saying no, and you have to say no more times than you say yes. So sometimes you got to just push back.
Appreciate it.
All right. I know we're at time. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, Cameron's time. Cameron, thank you so much for taking an hour to talk today. This was fantastic. If anyone hosts any blogs or podcasts, check out ChatStrike. And we'll be, if you want to attend the TechLife Live next month, I think it's April 24th. You can find it on meetup.com. Rebecca, thank you. Becca, thank you for helping with the polls and getting everything kicked off. Have a good rest of your afternoon. Thanks, Cameron.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Becca.
Thank you.
Thank you.